Hello, my name is George Kobar and I'm a Senior Technical Marketing Manager for vCloud Air. And on today's Tech Talk, we'll be talking about creating DMZs in vCloud Air on the OnDemand platform. So what is the purpose of a DMZ? Well, a DMZ is a logical or a physical separation between the external network, which would be a WAN or the internet, and internal networks, for example, the local area network or LAN, or inside the vCloud Air networking. So you can also think of this as a publicly accessible versus private and confidential. So your web servers typically sit onto the DMZ so the public can access information on your web servers, such as what your company does, the product and services that it may provide. Versus private confidential or database servers, typically we see customer data or user data on a database. So we want to make sure that's private and secured and that the public cannot access these database servers or this data. So a lot of questions that we receive from our customers is, can you create a DMZ within vCloud Air? And yes, you can. So in this example, we can see three different networks: the DMZ network, the application network, and a database network. And these networks will serve up our three-tier application, which comprise of web servers, application servers, and database servers. Now, all of these networks are connected to an edge gateway, and the edge gateway serves as a perimeter device that separates the internet from the internal networking in vCloud Air. And because the edge gateway is equipped with an included stateful layer 3 firewall, we can restrict what traffic can see each other, either web servers, application servers, or database servers. As an example, you may have customers want access information to your web servers, so we want to make sure we set the firewall to allow this traffic through. But we don't want your users or your customers to access the application servers or the database servers. Now, the web server needs to get information from the application servers, so we want to make sure that traffic is allowed through, but not to our database network. But we want to have our application network communicate with our database, so we want to make sure that traffic is. So we can see that Security Zone A, or the DMZ network, is less restrictive, all the way down to the database servers, which we get a lot more restrictive on who can access what. So let's go ahead and jump into the demonstration. To save some time, I've went ahead and already logged into the VMware vCloud Air service, and a virtual data center we'll be dealing with today is called Virtual Data Center 1, or VDC1. Now, one thing I'll do first is to create our networks. Now that my networks have been created, I'll go ahead and create my virtual machines, my web server VM, my application server VM, and my database server VM. Now that our three virtual machines have been configured, let's go ahead and configure the NATing and the firewall to first allow the traffic to our web server. This destination NAT will allow traffic into the service. I also want to make sure my web server is patched and configure Apache, so I'll also need to have an SNAT or source NAT. Now let's go ahead and configure the firewall. The first rule I'll allow is for the public internet to be able to talk to the web server. Next, I'll need to create a firewall rule to allow my web server to talk out to the internet to receive patches, or in my case, I'm going to install Apache. Next, let's go to our virtual machine, log in, and configure the Apache server. With the web server configured, let's go ahead and go to the IP address of our external edge gateway and see if our web server is up. Here we are. So now that our firewall rules are allowed to communicate with each other, let's go back to our server and see if we can communicate with our web server. Let's go ahead and go back to our web server and see if we can communicate to our app server or our database server. Next, we'll need to be able to configure our web server, talk to our app server, and our app server to communicate with our database server. I just configured ICMP to allow between two just for the sake of time to show you communication between the web server and the application server. Now let's go ahead and configure between our app server and our database server. Now that our rules configured, let's go ahead and go back to our application VM and ensure that we can ping the database server VM. So now we can see that the application server is able to talk to the database server. Well, let's go ahead and try to communicate out to the open internet. See, we're not able to communicate out to the WAN or the internet because we haven't set the NATing or the firewall rules to allow that traffic to flow through. Thank you. For more information on vCloud Air, please visit vcloud.vmware.com.